just a plan. You and me, watching while the cities rise and fall like rain.
From our compound, from the West Coast to the East Coast to worldwide, both on the internet and terrestrial radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
And that is me with my cohort tonight, James Krischbaum, who does our news reporting for the network and the show. I hope everybody's had a great week, and I hope only the best for you for this weekend. But, you know, getting back here, we got about like 3 minutes or so. If you think about our technology, the way it has moved, it's crazy. I mean, we went to the moon, right, with technology that, honestly, your cell phone has more of a computer in it than that space capsule or NASA had.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. That's the other thing. The computer that sent us to the moon was the size of a house, and now we call it our smartphone.
Yeah, it's scary. But again, I keep thinking about this. If you Google it, you can start seeing when our jets. We had jets in the Korean War, I should say. Okay, our Air Force and Navy had jets. We had jets before the Korean War. We had jets starting in 1946, a year, not even quite a year after World War II. How did we get that technology? How did we get that? You know, to build a jet, the airframe of it, it takes a while to design it. You got to build jigs. You got to come up with, you know, all the stuff to design it and make it work. And how could we have advanced so far technology-wise from building, well, a B-24 Mitchell, B-25, a B-17, B-29, and then go into jets? Crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know, it's a lot like the tubes to transistors and the optics and that kind of stuff. Look how fast that went, too.
Yeah, it just, I think we've been having help.
But the evidence is there. I mean, look at the pyramids. I don't think we made those, especially with the schematics that go into them and the technology that goes into building those so perfectly with stone. Some of them 20 tons. It's 100 miles away, shipped without the invention of the wheel at the time.
Well, remember last night I brought that up on the show, and even the guests agreed with me. You know, it's no way we could barge those heavy cut stones to where the pyramid was built. No way. No way could you build a canal through sand and fill it with water and take a barge carrying heavy weight, you know, which would bottom out anyway. So that meant that the canals would have had to been fairly deep and wide to be able to do it. And how would you build a canal that is all sand-based? Which
you know what happens?
It's like a sponge. That's like taking a sponge, right? And you take a cup of water and you pour it in the sponge, and it absorbs for the physical size of the sponge. So, you know, it will at a certain point it won't absorb any more water. But when you're out in the desert in all sand base, you know, hundreds of feet thick, it's like a huge, humongous sponge. You could be filling water in it all day and all night. It's just going to be gone.
Yeah, when you start mixing sand and water, a lot of times you're going to get quicksand.
Oh, that too. But what I'm saying is there's no way they could have created canals through the desert and then brought barges. I don't believe that. And if they did that, how? Oh, yeah, where you build this barge and you got this 20-ton stone on the back of the barge, right? Now you get a whole bunch of people on the other side of the barge to stand. You know how many people it would take for 20 tons? On a barge to stand on the other side to raise it up for you could unload the stone? And if you could do that, how did you get the stone up 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet off the ground?
Or 400 feet, which is at the top. And another thing, how did you cut it so precisely with nothing more than copper hammers and chisels?
You couldn't. You know, Flow Industries in Kent, Washington is the one who designed the water cutting tool. You know, they can cut metal with it. They can cut concrete with it. but they can't do it as precise as what this does for the pyramids. And then if you want to get into that, look at the Sphinx. Hey, we already know it's older than the pyramids. How did it get there?
Yeah, that's right. Some scientists and archaeologists claim it's 10,000 years old, and the markings on it, some say, is from water weathering.
Yeah, well, they said that the wear on the back of the Sphinx, for years they said, oh, it's from sand blowing. Now, after all these tests, and they come to the conclusion it was underwater, and that was wear marks from the water. Okay, so that tells me that whole area was underwater. It was under an ocean at one point. That meant it was there before that ocean formed. We weren't around. Simple as that. I wasn't here, you wasn't here, and your great relatives weren't here.
No, not unless they had a time machine and didn't tell me and went there and messed around with it and came back, but you're absolutely right.
Speaking about time machines, I do have a guy coming in on late February who actually was on our Bell show that actually makes time machines.
Oh, you found him.
I found him. Not the one, Madman Malcolm. This is another one. Okay, I think our guest is on, so we're going to answer the phone here, hopefully, and get him on. Well, hi, Neil. How you doing, my friend? Hey, Neil. Okay, Neil, are you there?
Hello, Gary.
Yeah, we were breaking up again. Gee, get that microphone right where we had it before we went on the air.
It's right there.
Okay, well, how is the weather in the UK right now?
It's windy here in Northumberland. It's been raining today, but otherwise it hasn't been too bad for the time of year.
How about, what's the temperature like?
Oh, I'm not very good on temperatures.
Is it cold? Is it cold?
It's chilly.
Well, I was reading, Neil, back a couple months ago. They predicted the UK was going to have like the coldest winter in the 100-year span. Have you heard anything about that?
We've had a few frosts and snows, but I've known it colder, and I've known an awful lot more snow around. We just have to kind of go with the flow, really.
Yeah, what do you think about Antarctica? You know, melting and speeding up and all that stuff. What concerns me, especially where you're at, you know, the warm water belt. It comes from the equator, goes up all the way to the Atlantic, all the way up by the UK. It keeps you guys from going into like a ice age or a mini ice age. If that would slow down or come to a stop, it would be disastrous for you.
I think climate change is something that the whole world needs to be aware of, and it can affect absolutely every single country out there. So I think we've just got to do the best that we can to be kind to the environment and hang on to the things that we have and harness as much natural renewable energies as we possibly can.
Well, how's your government take climate? I will tell you this. Our government here that's in power right now in the United States laughs at it and says that there is no climate change. There's no problems with, earth changes. It's not true. It's all a hoax. How does your government officials feel about climate changes? Do they take it more serious than Trump?
They really are taking it very, very seriously, or at least that's what they say in the party political broadcasts and the literature that they put out there, that they are sincere about what they want to do. But the thing is, in comparison to the rest of the world, Great Britain is a very small country. And they talk about we want to lead the way by example. But it comes down to the really big countries of this world, China in particular. My son has recently been out in China, and even in what you'd imagine was beautiful mountains, mist all around them, you can hardly breathe out there because of the emissions that they've got going on there. So it's up to this generation, I think, to make that difference. And I think it's very foolish for anybody, and no matter what their politics, to pop their head in the sand and hide away from it. It's up to us. It really is.
Yeah, and it's scary because, every day Antarctica, you read about it. It's breaking up more. It's scary. And the storms that we get in our country are getting more intense and bigger. And the climate here is weird. Like I live up in a place called Gig Harbor, Washington. And I'm not that far away from California. And I'll tell you, last April, we would be in the 40s. We had one day, out of the blue, it broke all records, 96 degrees for one day. And then the next day, it was back in the 40s. But it was real weird. And then we had the biggest snowstorm last year we had in 20 years. So it's a lot of weird things are going on. And not just in my state, it's all over.
The summers are hotter than I can ever remember them being.
Yeah. Now, getting to you, Neil, what got you into researching, these type of things like Jack the Ripper and Dracula files and all this stuff?
Well, many years ago, as a young man, I grew up in the county of Norfolk in England, and I was surrounded by wonderful myths and legends and stories. And it's a real folk storytelling county, East Anglia. There was tales of witchcraft and goblins and ghosts all around me when I was growing up. And when I got to my teenage years, it was when I really started grabbing the books off the shelves and having it just caught my imagination. And the book, and in fact, it was actually one of those late night shows on TV when they put a real old Dracula film on with Bela Lugosi playing Dracula, and I loved it was iconic, the whole image of this figure in black and white. It chilled me to the bone. He really got the back of me. I was frightened. It was uncanny. It was strange, and I wanted to read Dracula. I was ready. What's the true story of this? And so I was hooked. And in the same way, I think a lot of, if you're going to be into ghosts and legends, it's going to particularly get you in your teenage years. There were a number of books that came out at the time. This was in the 1980s, really, that were looking at Jack the Ripper. So by the time I got to college in 1988, that was the 100th anniversary. So there was a TV series, a two-parter, a big one, transatlantic stars in there. Michael Caine was the main man playing Inspector Abeline.
Oh, by the way, I just want to say, one of my listeners out there, believe it or not, is Michael Caine, by the way.
No.
Oh, yeah.
What a wonderful, wonderful man with many connections to the county of Norfolk, particularly during the Second World War, when he was evacuated out that way, and he had some of his first performances on stage in the county of Norfolk. So I send my warmest respects to Sir Michael, and I wish him all the very best. Nice person. A true gentleman of the old school of filmmaking, but a man he's contemporary. He's a man that